Troy, how you doing? Welcome to the MindShift podcast.
Thanks, Darryl. We're looking forward to our chat today after you were on our podcast in May last year, 2022. I really enjoyed our chat. So it's a bit different
It
today
was
to
a
be on
great
the other
chat.
side of the mic, but I'm looking forward to talking all things entrepreneurial with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember being on your show. We got introduced through one of the podcast networks, and man, you have a rapid fire show. Congratulations on over 400 episodes. My goodness. Tell everyone really quick about your podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, over 400 episodes live now. We're in the top 1.5% of all 3.1 million podcasts out there, so the top 50,000. And the purpose of the cast, when I did the research about 4 years ago, was I felt there was a lot of casts out there in business that either just had unicorns on, so billion-dollar companies, all the big success stories, and there wasn't enough discussion around all the shit that goes wrong, all the mistakes, as well as the good things. And so I've structured, as a quick fire put you through last year, about 28 questions, very structured questions to draw out the good and the bad, the worst moment in the person's business journey, for example, so our audience can learn from that. And most people listening are business owners with, between 5 and 30 team members wanting to know how they can grow up to that next level. So that's something we've been doing now for almost 4 years.
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations. Let's set the stage here. First of all, where are you joining us from?
Beautiful Hobart, Tasmania. It's an island south of Melbourne here in Australia. So about 500,000 people live here, 2/3 of the state's national park. We're very outdoorsy like Canadians or Kiwis. And it's just a beautiful part of the world. I've been to 30 countries and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Wow, that's awesome. And right now, I think right now it's going on 4 o'clock my time. What is it, 10 or so a.m. your time?
Yep, almost 10. I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm going to probably talk very fast.
It could be fired up. Let's dive
Yeah.
right in. Troy, when did you first start your entrepreneurial career? Because you've had, we're going to get into it, but some 15 businesses, you still own 7. When did you get your start in entrepreneurship?
Well, technically, I guess you could say my first business was mowing lawns for people in my small country town. I grew up 2 hours out of Melbourne in country Victoria, and I really enjoyed that. And I loved computers as well. So my parents gave me a Commodore 64 around that age. So I even wrote myself like an accounts receivable program so I could invoice my clients. This is age 11. My 10-year-old daughter beat me to it though. She asked me a couple of years ago, is she the youngest in the family that started a business at age 8? I said, yeah, I think I'll check with Dad, but I'm pretty sure you are. So I guess that was probably my first one. And then watching my parents grow a small fuel business into a medium-sized business, I really had business in my blood from a very young age. So Dad grew that. Mum and Dad grew that. Dad sold out early 2000s. By that point, they were a BP distributor and they were doing about 100 million litres a year, 80 million top line and 30 team members. So, Dad and I talk business until the sun goes down, and just something I really enjoyed, seeing all the moving parts, clearly seeing the stress as well, but the challenge and just how hard it is to grow a business, let alone start one.
Yeah. It's interesting when I look at your background and you look at your backstory of how many businesses you've been in and out of. Do you define yourself as a serial entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess I don't have a particular niche or industry. So I started my first 2 businesses late 1999, 2 tech companies. I'll go through those in a moment. But over the last 24 years, I've had 15 businesses, 30 business partners. That's not passive shareholders, people working in the trenches with me in 3 different countries. So the first half of that 24 years, pretty much all tech companies and mainly selling time, professional services, whether it was IT support or web design, etc. A little bit of e-commerce thrown in there as well. And then the last 12 years has been a big focus on product-based businesses in the distilling space, mainly whiskey, and also brewing as well. I chair the second largest craft brewery here in Tasmania. So my passion is growing businesses. Doesn't matter what they do, in what industry. It is about taking that idea or something, it might be an existing business, and cleaning it up or growing it to that next level. So that's something I've really understood about myself probably 5 or 6 years ago. That's the thing that really lights me up and gets me out of bed in the morning. Yeah.
What's your superpower when you come in to grow a business?
Well, that's a very good question, Daryl. No one's ever asked me that. I would say early on, it's numbers. I'm very good with spreadsheets and numbers. I did 2 degrees at uni. I think you can see a bit of a pattern here. I like to do 2 things at once. So one of my degrees is a computing degree. The other one's a business degree, majoring in accounting. And I loved management accounting and microeconomics at
Hmm.
university. So early on, both my daughter and I were quite strong on numbers. I would say that was my probably initial superpower, and also having the vision of having the idea of starting up some of the businesses that we've had. And I would say in the last 10 years, I've shifted my superpower by in two areas, and that's mainly people and marketing, because they're the two areas, the biggest levers I think that make all the value in growing a business. So I've really swatted
Yeah.
up on my own professional development in one, becoming a better leader and manager, and secondly, in marketing, because I really didn't understand marketing. I think, like a lot of business owners early on, don't, and they don't value it as much as what they should. And so they're now the two areas. I would say the people side I'm stronger on than I am on the marketing, but I've really investing a lot of my time now to become much better at marketing, while not doing the execution day to day around that corner.
Yeah.
I still need a comprehensive understanding of what's working and what we should be doing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What are the key elements in businesses that grow and scale at a rapid pace? What are the key foundational elements?
At Grow a Small Business, we talk about 5 pillars for growth. That's people, strategy, marketing, funding, and then finally systems. And we put about a 50% weighting on that first one, on people, because as you probably know, Daryl, people are, as I say on the cast, people are the hardest thing in small business and where the value is at, because you can't do it on your own. You need a great team, as Jim Collins wrote about in Good to Great. People aren't your most important asset. The right people are. Get the right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. So that his second book was a 5-year study. The first one, Built to Last, was also a 5-year study. They were trying to find out what is it that drives the immense growth in these amazing companies. So the first book had 18 companies like Sony, Disney, Walmart, Boeing, and then they had a comparison company. And they show all the stats at the start of the book saying that the visionary companies outperformed their comparisons by a factor of 5, and their comparisons outperformed the stock market by a factor of 10 or something like that. So phenomenal. They wanted to understand why there was a gap between the visionary companies and their comparison companies, and the comparison companies were already well outperforming the markets. And they went in with preconceived notions. It's a charismatic leader, kick-ass product, amazing strategy, but it was none of that. It all comes down to the team. You get the right team on the bus first, then you work out where you're going to drive that bus. So
So good, man. You couldn't have picked two better books in my history of
yeah,
my journey.
yep.
Spot on. When you come in to take over a company, is it typically the people, the marketing, the systems, the strategy? Which of your top 5 pillars do you see most common where the business seems to be stuck?
That's a good question. I would say generally it's the people. So there are a few business owners that I'm still help one-on-one at the moment. There's 2 great examples that they don't have a marketing problem, and they're at their early stage. So they might have a handful of team members. So there might be 1 or 2 there that they can't get up to that A player level. They'll have to move on. But it is setting that people piece in place. So the first thing I look at and help them fix straight away is recruitment. So you only let A players on the bus. So that's generally the first area I look at, and then we assess the team to see whether the ones that are there are right for the next chapter of growth, and whether we can develop them up to that A player level in the role that is needed. Otherwise, again, you have to move them on.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing to do, to let people that even maybe been with the company for 5, 10, 15 years, but what got you here may not get you there. So it is a tough decision as a CEO to make. So
yeah, it's my
you still have your hands.
Sorry, it's my least fun thing to do, as any business owner will tell you, is having to let people go. 100%. And as I say to people, that's your fault as the owner, as the manager, or the leader of the business. So you either stuffed up the recruitment, you got the wrong person on, or you didn't support the person and develop them and get them up to the level that's needed. So at the end of the day, it all comes back to you, as you well know.
Hard truth in entrepreneurship. If you're listening to this right now and don't understand that, it's not all what you see on Instagram.
That's right.
When it goes right, it's we. I like to say it this way, Troy. When it goes right, it was us. When it
Hmm.
goes wrong, it was me.
That's it. Absolutely.
So that's
Mm.
how it works, right? You still
Yep.
have your hands in 6 businesses personally, right? 6 businesses you still own?
I own seven, and I only work
Oh,
in
seven.
two at the moment. So, grow a small business is the most of my time. I spend about 4 hours a week on the Distillers Institute, the online training course for anyone thinking of starting a distillery in Australia or New Zealand. So, my focus is grow a small business, and I sit on 5 boards as well and chair most of those, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. What's it like transitioning from operator and I don't know, would you deem yourself an operator or a visionary if you kind of break down the two big ideas?
Yeah, so that's Gino Wickman's rocket fuel book. His
It's
concept.
Wickman's, but
Yeah,
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 yeah. Some people are more on the strategy side, the visionary side. Some are more the technical, side of
yeah.
it. But what side do you typically fall on?
That's I would say the operator is my innate ability, and although I do have great visions, so some of the companies we started up were all my ideas back in late 1999. Uh, but I'd say slightly stronger on the operator, the execution. I really enjoy getting a lot of stuff done, and
Yeah,
and more so these days, delegating, leveraging team members, developing them, training them up, but big on execution.
yeah. So you're board. You sit on. You chair 5 boards. What's that like going from operator of multiple businesses over a couple of decades to now being on the board side?
Oh, it's heaven. I've been my first board role was about 7 years ago. So Australia's oldest golf course. It's about an hour out of Hobart, where I live. They've got accommodation on there. It's an 18-hole golf course, 1822, I think, when the farm or the golf course was created. So I've been sitting on that board for nearly 7 years. That's an advisory board. There's no chair on that one. And then soon after that, I started chairing the Hobart Brewing Company, which is the second largest craft brewer here in Tasmania. And I really enjoyed the change. I left my last operational role effectively 4 years ago, running other companies, and just sitting on those boards, particularly chairing them, because influencing people in a business, direct reports, etc., team members is hard enough. But then you go up to that level where you've got highly intelligent people that are driven, probably other alphas in the room, if you're, people use that term. But to be able to influence people to get the right decision for the business is another level of a challenge, which I really revel in and enjoy. And it always comes back to what is the best decision here for the business, not one shareholder, not one board member or team member. And so navigating all those discussions, emotions, sometimes shit goes wrong. I really enjoy that challenge because I tend to only do things that are reasonably hard.
Hmm. Interesting. Speaking of hard, when you launched your company back in '99, I think I read that one of the things you look back on was 100-hour work weeks and things of that nature. But take us back a couple of decades, and I think I read that you felt like you burned a lot of relationships back in that time. What if you were that same entrepreneur? If you're telling that entrepreneur today what you know now to start all over again, what would you tell that entrepreneur back then about starting that business '99, and what do you maybe regret or wish you had done differently?
Yeah, great questions there, Daryl. I would tell myself to focus and simplify. So pick one of the two businesses I started. As I like to analogize it, uh, I went panning for gold, and I also sold the pans. So panning for gold and the gold rushes. Most people that made the money were the ones selling the pans, the picks, shovels, etc. Not the people actually panning the gold. So the Picks and Shovels was a web design development company which we started in late 1999 in Melbourne. Still going, got 86 team members in that business, in 6 offices, and the Panning for Gold was an e-tailer selling gifts online. So my business partner, a lovely Greek family in Melbourne, they had 2 big gift stores in Melbourne, and I approached them. I guess that's the visionary piece. I approached them and said, let's put this online. And so we did that. And then after the .com crash, etc., we closed that one down. But I would have picked one of those and gone hard and focused until it got to a level that I should then be able to get out of the business and move on to the next one. So after that, late 1999, starting those two, that was the 100-hour week, sleeping in the warehouse sometimes, not looking after my health or relationships, burning a lot of relationships, family, friends, romantic, etc. Just the entrepreneurial enthusiasm. I think I was late 27 years old, so naive, driven, etc. But balance would be a big one that I'd throw in there and say work a 40-hour work week. Otherwise, another aspect to think about on that front is that you've got a faulty business model. If you're doing 100-hour weeks, even in one business, then you don't have a sustainable business because there's just too much on your plate. So that's one big thing that I'd recommend is focus and go hard on one business until it's set up and then move on to the other one. We had 4 or 5 companies at one point, my business partners, and our holding company we named it Opportunity Junkies Proprietary Limited because we just couldn't say no to opportunities. We just kept buying tech companies or starting them up, or
I love
et
it.
cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love it. Opportunities unlimited. That's great. Tech companies, it's an interesting thing. I notice you have tech backgrounds and you've got product manufacturing. What's your favorite type of business to own?
Well, that's a great question. I really have enjoyed the move to the Distillers Institute about 4 years ago, which is online education. Putting all our knowledge into a course and then having students consuming that knowledge, which is something that we've moved to this year at Grow a Small Business, as I was saying to you before hit record, rather than one-on-one coaching to small business owners to help them grow their business. We find we repeat ourselves probably 80% of the content over and over. So we've put all those into 3 courses, which I'll talk about later. But I've really enjoyed that. I think a few years ago I was fascinated by SaaS businesses because I'm very systems and process orientated. But I think there's going to be upkeep and maintenance and developers you've got to work with. So I would probably say the online education space now is my favorite business model out of all the ones that I've been involved with.
Yeah, you sound super passionate about that. Let's transition actually into this business, Grow a Small Business. Tell everyone a little bit about what you're doing there and what gave you the idea and how you work with businesses in your community there.
Yeah, I've been mentoring for about 15 or 16 years. So before I moved to London in 2007, business owners would approach me when I was in Melbourne, and I'd go out informally for a coffee or a beer and just impart my advice to them. Same thing happened in London. Then when I got back from London and moved to Tasmania in 2011. And so on the move back from London, I just decided to write about 30 blog posts about the key advice that I'm asked all the time. So the growsmallbusiness.com domain amazingly was available. That was early 2011. So I grabbed that, wrote the blog posts, and then didn't touch the website again until about 3 or 4 years ago when I decided to reboot the brand and have more focus on helping small business owners grow their business with ease so they can live that lifestyle they signed up for. Because as you know, it's a lot harder to grow a small business than what people think.
Yes.
So that's kind of where the journey of Grow a Small Business came from. We started the podcast a bit over 4 years ago, just before COVID came along. And that came out of my passion of talking about business with business owners. So I love that 1 hour I spend, or each episode. So I do 2 a week. My business partners do the Quickfire Friday one. And I really enjoy that, hearing other journeys and lessons learned, etc., that we're imparting on our audience. And to allow us to help more small business owners, that's this year why we launched the Business Transformation Program. So it's got those 3 courses in them that you do over 90 business days. It's a short email you get each morning at 8 o'clock and says, here's 30 minutes of working on the business, read 11 minutes of this part of the course, then spend the next 19 minutes doing these 2 or 3 growth actions. It might be setting up, using one of the templates in the course, or sending an email to your team, etc. And that guides you through those 3 courses over those 90 business days. And at the end of that email is also some professional development we recommend. So read 30 minutes of this. This is the current book we're recommending that you read, and Good to Great's one of those, Daryl. And within the courses, we've structured them specifically around the 3 areas, the 3 people areas. So the leadership, that's the owner of the business, management, any people that have direct reports, any managers in the business. That includes the owner. They're a manager. And then the last level is productivity. So transform your performances for all of the team members to do to become more productive and less stressed. And so we've broken it down to those three ways. So, the entire team can do the productivity one, all the managers can do Kick-Ass Manager course, and the owner does the Effective Leader, which has a big focus on becoming a better communicator, setting out the vision, mission, core values, all the Jim Collins stuff, etc., and a whole lot more stuff, getting the 4 strategic documents that we give in the course, in the program, help them fill those out. So, the agile business plan, 10-year financial model, mini marketing plan and action sheet, and a simple quarterly strategic plan that the team works every 90 days. And that allows us to help a lot more owners. So most of that, what we're repeating, our key messages are in the courses. And then that 30-minute weekly one-on-one we have with the business owner, we can be a lot more targeted with helping them with any specific issues, either they're learning or understanding in the courses, or they're having issues with a team member or sales or marketing, and we can direct them to the right resources or somebody in our network to go and to speak with, or just say, well, I've made that mistake before, I wouldn't do that. This is what I did to fix it, or go and talk to this person because I know that they've gone through exactly what you're going through right now.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like a tremendous resource, and really, it's a different way now that successful leaders can go back and pull up the next generation, right? And it doesn't matter what age the person is, right? It's generational. So people right now in their 50s are starting businesses more than ever to this day, and they may have been in corporate for 25, 30 years. So it's tremendous what you're doing. I got to ask this question because you strike me as someone who probably has spent a good chunk of time on personal development in your own world, growth, maturity, change management of your own personal self. I know, Grow You is one of the pillars in your program. Talk about that for you. What does that look like in your personal growth journey over the last couple of decades?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had a continual improvement mindset. So a lot of education. I listen to a lot of books and podcasts at the moment because I track my time for various reasons. But I'm doing 10 to 15 hours a week of professional development at the moment. Most of that is audio books and podcasts because I can do that while I'm driving around town or taking my dog to the dog park or exercising. So, utilizing that dead time. But it's just amazing listening to thought leaders and other great business people, just that even if they're in vastly different industries, some of the concepts they have or lessons I take into all my businesses and the ones that I help as well. So that's one of the habits I encourage people, and which is why we've got it in the program, 30 minutes a day, listening to a certain book. We really encourage people to build that habit of always be improving yourself, working on growing you, as you said.
Yeah, I love it. I wanted you to articulate that. I had no idea what you were going to say, but I've always believed that an entrepreneur should probably be spending an hour a day on their own personal growth and development. I do the same thing, and it hasn't changed in 25 or 30 years, up to and including the book that I'm reading currently. I actually want to pick your brain. What have you read recently that is something you might recommend to almost every entrepreneur? Obviously, Good to Great is out there and Built to Last. But what's been something that really made you say, this is really good?
Well, there's a few books. I'll start with Alex Hormozi. Have you read any of his books?
I have followed him pretty closely the last couple of years. He lives in my city.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Haven't met him, but he lives here.
He's brilliant. Like, he must be mid-30s now. He's obviously had a corporate background, hated it, started a gym business, got up to 6, then was helping other gym owners around America turn around their gyms. I think they'd helped 1,500 gyms by the time he sold that business. He still owns a bit of that. But his $100 million offers book was amazing, as was $100 million leads, which only came out about a month ago. Really good books, particularly because he's got such a strong focus on sales, because in the gym world, it's quite a hard sell to do there. And his gym launch book before that is also very good. Even if you don't own a gym, there's a lot of great nuggets in there. More so recently, one of my favorite, or two of my favorites, came out of recommendations from guests on my cast, and that is The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. Have you read that one?
I have not.
Man, you got to read it. It's a great book. So 1991, Missouri, they were working at a Caterpillar plant. 1984, Caterpillar were closing it down. They bought the business. I think they needed $9 9 million. They didn't have $9 million, so somehow they got the bank to stump up 8.9 million. They had 100 grand, and then they went through a bit like Ricardo Semler in Maverick. Have you read Maverick?
No, haven't read Maverick.
Similar to him, he was 1989 from memory. In Brazil, industrialist, took over his father's business, and then this is in the late 70s, early 80s, and then went through all the different management styles and anything you could think of until they got it right, as did Jack Stack and his team, as he puts out in the Great Game of Business book. And so they've been able to grow these fabulous businesses by just continually learning, changing, using the feedback loop. That's not working, talking to other business owners, studying things. So they're both very good books. I'd highly recommend The Great Game of Business and Maverick. But the other one that I was thinking of that came from a guest that I could not believe I hadn't heard of, just like The Great Game of Business, is Built to Sell. Have you read John Morillow's book?
I have. Yep. Have read it a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great book.
I've actually read his whole library.
Really? Yeah.
Automatic Customer and
yep.
Yeah.
I'm onto his
all good stuff.
Another book of his at the moment. But the other thing I did after, so we had John on our podcast, and there's a great story on there of a lady in America who built up a nanny or au pair payroll business. I think they had 70,000 nannies on their payroll, been going for 10 or 20 years, and 9 million top line. And he says on the cast, they went for a strategic buyer, and she was able to sell that business for 6 times top line, not EBITDA. So 54 million she got from the business, because the business who bought her business, care.com, which is a big platform for parents to find a babysitter, a nanny, someone to mow the lawns, etc. They had something like 7 million people on their database. So they could plug her business in to their main business and get their money back pretty quickly. So great. I just love listening to those nuggets and those stories. Yeah. And so after I listened to John on our podcast, I went and listened to his book, and then immediately went on to his Built to Sell radio podcast series, which has been going for about 8 years, and I'm slowly going through his back catalogue, and that is a phenomenal resource for anyone, not even just thinking about exiting a business, but just cleaning your business up, if you do want to sell it one day.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I was, excuse me, Leah, we're going to cut this little part out. Let me get some water.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's really interesting. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received as an entrepreneur is build a business that is saleable, whether you want to sell it or not.
Yeah,
because a business that's saleable is good to its owner. So it's just an interesting sentence that has always struck me. But Built to Sell, I can't second that recommendation more. The podcast, like you said, you're never going to get just listening to the stories is it just lets you know that. Because a lot of times when you run an entrepreneur business, you feel like you could be by yourself, even if you maybe have a community or know some other folks. But just to listen to the structure and how people got their company ready and how the deals came together, it's just incredible. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I had a feeling you did a lot of reading. So
yeah, no, I do. And the other great thing about that Built to Sell is if you are thinking of exiting soon, there's a whole lot of nuggets in there, like things people have stuffed up in their legal agreements on exiting. A good example was someone had an earn out, but the lawyers missed and the owner missed that if the company that acquired them, if they themselves got acquired, the earn out needs to stay in place, and they didn't have that clause in, and they lost their earn out because of that. So all these little things that fall out of those conversations.
Yeah. Really great book. Great book. Great anything. John Warlow is going to be on point. Automatic Customer is another one, whether you're in tech or not. Just the concept of recurring revenue in your business model. Every business should find a way to get recurring revenue. So it's great. I don't know if I asked this question. Did I ask? Yes, I did. I was going to ask you about tech versus. So Leah will cut this little tirade out. Right now, with the world of online and global economy, we're going to go back to people for just a moment. How are you seeing the world of people as it relates to right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, right butts in right seat? Over the last couple of years since the pandemic, there's been this sort of new evolution of quiet quitting and people leaving corporate to start their own businesses. I don't know about in Australia and some of the places that you're working in right now, but here in North America, there seems to be an energy of I don't call it apathy, complacency. We're finding it's almost like people are tired of working hard.
Mm.
But I don't know if that's a great question. But what are you seeing in the people market today,
Yeah.
especially in the line of freelancers and consultants
Yeah.
and all of the different things?
It's a great question, Daryl. I think COVID was a real shake-up for people, for their health, not just physical health, but mental health as well. And a lot of people sat back and realised, I don't want to work for an arsehole anymore, because 70% of people quit their manager. They don't quit the business or their job. They're quitting the manager. 70% of people. And that's, again, another big reason why in our courses, particularly, we have such a big focus on the Kick-Ass Manager course, help people become better managers. So I think there's a lot of that, and people want more autonomy and control over their lives. So there is a big boom of people starting their own businesses, whether they're micro or solo businesses, to have that freedom and flexibility. And I think you're right. People are now wanting to work more balanced hours. The 4-day work week is gained a lot of momentum, which I'm a big advocate for. And also the whole remote working and working from home argument, it's really shaking out a lot of the old school command and control thinking of leaders and managers in business, which to me is just stupendous way to think. Because if I can't, their mentality is, if I can't see you, you're not working, and that just breaks down all the trust that the manager has with their directs, as opposed to the manager doing the hard work and developing themselves as better managers. So they've got that trust and the professional relationship built with their team members who are there for the vision and the mission of the business, and they want to get the work done. So it doesn't matter where they are doing the work or what hours they work.
100%.
And so I think a lot of companies, and I've read it in the papers, every week, a lot of big corporates, even smaller ones, are still fighting this battle of, no, you've got to come back to the office. And I just shake my head at them going, well, all right, we'll see where you're at in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I call them stuck on stupid.
Yeah.
Look, I got shook up. We used to have an office here in town, and everybody looked me face to face. And then we went through the COVID thing. And even though we're digital technology companies, we can actually navigate. We were already set up to work virtually. The dynamic did shift, but never in my imagination would I have thought that I'm the only employee for my companies in Vegas, like everybody else is somewhere else. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
In 3.5 years, I'm the only person on either side of my two companies.
Yeah.
That's even in Vegas. And so we are in a new shift where I think the key, and maybe chime in on this, we are being forced. And again, to your point of 70% of people leaving, jerk bosses, I think corporate America and bosses and management in general and leadership theory is like, you've got to start treating people like people. Mm-hmm. And you've got to care more about what matters to them, not just the objective that you care for. Right. And I think that's the shakeup, that people don't want to care.
Yeah.
And they'll pay for it. They're going to pay for it.
They will. And
I don't have PTO. I don't have a PTO policy in my company. If you got a problem, handle it.
Yeah. And obviously it's a very tight labor market at the moment. That will change over time. But I think there is this shift in society and the workplace where employees want more respect and better managers. So I think even when the power swings back to the companies when it comes to the labor market, there is still going to be this challenge there for the old school mindset leader and manager, that if you do not, the biggest thing I could recommend is just work on yourself as a manager or as a leader and get educated, listen to the best resources and books out there on this, on how to work with your team better.
100%. Troy, you've done a lot and you're going to do a lot more, I can tell. What is business legacy? What does legacy look like for you in the long game?
Wow, these are great questions, Daryl. I've had no prep, so thankfully a lot of confidence.
It's okay. Top of your head.
Great questions. I guess the legacy that I'd like to leave is have helped a lot more business owners avoid some of the mistakes and pain that I've made. So, if I can help, I don't know, as many as I can avoid going into debt or having problems with their relationships or their health and dying earlier because they spend so much time working and not looking after their physical and mental health, for example. That's the legacy that I'd like to be able to leave behind, to be able to educate business owners that there's a better way to go about this. because a lot of people have the right intentions. I'm doing this for the family. I'm going to work 100-hour weeks. I'm going to build all this wealth, and 6 years later they sell out for $100 million and they turn around and their family's not there, because they spent so much time on the business. Now they've got all this money, but their family doesn't want to spend it with them or any time. And if you just do the numbers, because most of us are going to work into our 80s because it's good for our mind anyway. So even if you went part-time from your 50s, you're still going to earn enough. Have you heard of the 4% rule?
In somewhat, please share.
So it basically is, you work out how much money you want to live on for the rest of your life every year after tax. So let's say it's $100,000 for argument's sake. You own your house, and the most you could ever spend, including reasonable travel around the world, if might be $100,000 a year. If that's your number, divide it by 0.04, the 4%, and then that will roll up to the amount of money you need in your 401k, or here in Australia, a superannuation fund, for example, that you can draw down 4% every year, that $100,000 a year, and that capital is never decreasing. So you'll always have that money there. You can hand it on to your kids if you want. So it's that 4% rule. And I think a lot of people don't stop early on in their business career or corporate careers and think about what is that number that I'd be happy to live on, and then divide it by the 0.04 to get to, and then work out, well, actually, if I keep working, if I keep working and earning this much and putting this much savings away, I will have that balance by the time I'm 50 or 55 or 60, etc., whatever. And then I'm going to keep working part-time anyway, because to keep the brain active, I'm going to need to anyway. So I think, it's a long answer to your question, but that's the legacy, is educating some of the business owners around some of those concepts, like the 4% rule I've just outlined, but also that balance of health, wealth, and relationships. So you are investing the time. The longest standing study in happiness was a Harvard survey going for about 80 years, and they took different vocations I think it was mainly around Brooklyn, and tracked them over 80 years. And every year or two, they'd ask them the same questions to see what made them the happiest, and out of what bore out of that study, whether they were surgeons or bricklayers or business owners, the thing was relationships, was spending time with friends and family and having solid relationships. That's the thing that gave the greatest happiness, because there's plenty of surveys show there's marginal increase in happiness if you earn more than over $75,000 US a year, for example. The number might be different these days, but it's not about the money. It's about the relationships that you build up over the time.
Amazing. Troy Truan, boy, thank you for taking some time out to hang out with us today. If your ideal customer is listening to this right now, someone who is a perfect fit for Grow a Small Business, where can they find you? Where can they find your program? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, just go to growasmallbusiness.com. Have a listen to the podcast as well. I really enjoy, as I said, having great guests on like yourself, Daryl, talking business. Check out our website. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got a few articles up there on LinkedIn as well around, working with teams, putting a board together, whether it's a formal board or an advisory board. And just reach out on LinkedIn or just email me, troy@growasmallbusiness.com.
Appreciate it. Your generosity is much appreciated. I really appreciate entrepreneurs who go out and do the work over and over again. They don't talk, they don't beat the drum, they get the work done. You're a guy who gets the work done, and now you're giving back to the community, giving back to the next generation of small businesses. And again, trying to help them avoid some of those mistakes. I know I have a heart to do the same thing with the MindShift Business Academy. Thank you again for having me on your show. Thank you for taking time to be out here with our guest today. And for those of you listening, I want you to pick up a couple things that Troy said. Number one, listen to his work ethic. Look at what he identified as his superstar DNA. Still, he had visionary, but he's also an operator. He found his gift. He went into it. He said, "Hey, lean out, do fewer things better before you try to do a lot more." Books, great books. Good to Great, Built to Last. Those are just classics, must reads if you're an entrepreneur. And if you are in need of some support in a small business community, we'll link everything up in the show notes for you to find this podcast, and then growasmallbusiness.com. For you, my friend, my name is Daryl Evans. If this happened to be your first time here, I'm your host. I'd love to have you back next week for next week's episode. Hit the follow, subscribe, like button, all of that good stuff. And if you know anyone who would need to hear what was discussed today, be sure to share this episode with someone else. And I'll see you again next time. Take care. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.